Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about everything I do to make my mug design print files. So I'm going to show you exactly how I make my design print files for all of my mug designs that I sell in my Etsy shop using Printify, and we'll also take a quick look at Gelato and Printful. So stick around and let's talk about creating those mug designs. All right, so I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and I've gotten questions in the comments on some of my other videos about this exact thing, about how I go about making my design print files for all of my mugs. And the first thing we're going to do is talk about the safe area, because I got a test mug to kind of show you the outcome for at least one of the print providers, just to give you an idea of the whole safe area, the bleed area, that kind of stuff, because it can be a little confusing. So I created a test pattern, and I have it on the District Photo print provider's regular 11-ounce white mug. So if we open the designer view of that, you'll see this is a grid pattern with different colored vertical lines. So the very bottom is a purple line, the very top is a blue line, and then we've got some different colors in between. And I ordered a sample of this to see exactly how it would come out, because the top lines, the blue line on top and the purple line on the bottom, are outside of what is outlined as the safe area, the area where, you know, they suggest that you keep all of your important design elements in to make sure that it doesn't get cut off. So I'm going to bring up on the screen now some close-up shots of the sample that I received. And one thing that you'll notice is the alignment. We did get the top blue line on around the entire mug. We got the bottom blue line around 95% of the mug. You can definitely go outside of what they, define as the safe area, but at the same time, it's not perfectly aligned. The top blue line is really up close, getting cut off at the top. And in fact, it's a little bit blurry on the far left side. When you go outside the print area like this, if you go all the way to the top, here's kind of the main takeaway. When you go all the way to the absolute top edge of the mug with your design, and you go outside of that safe area, if it is slightly tilted like this, it's more noticeable. So if this blue line on top and the purple line on the bottom were not there, if all we had were the center four lines, it would be much less obvious that the design as a whole was slightly tilted from left to right, kind of leans downward as you go from left to right. So if you don't go outside the print area, the safe area, at least not too much. You can go a little bit outside if you need to maximize your design. But if you don't go all the way up to the bleed line, the absolute top, it's going to be less obvious when something comes out just slightly tilted. So keep that in mind. All right, so now that we understand the safe area and the bleed area, the maximum area, let's talk about the two ways that I make my mug print files. And I have two ways because it kind of depends on the shape of the design. And this at first may sound like it's not efficient to do it two different ways, but it works for me. So this is just the way I do it. If you have tips or efficiencies on how you make your mug designs, please share in the comments for this video, because I would love to learn new ways to do things, and it's always helpful to share and learn from others. All right, so we're going to start with our 11-ounce standard mug, and I'm going to find the one that I use most common, so that's going to be the one from District Photo. In general, the dimensions of the print file, print areas, and templates is going to be the same for the 11-ounce white mug, and there are multiple providers of them, but in general, they're all going to be the same dimensions. So we're going to start designing, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download the template for this, because using the template is one of the two ways that I make my mug print files. So it's in the bottom left corner of the screen. It's got this little kind of download symbol. So just click on that and it will download a zip file. I'm just going to double click on the PSD file. That's the one we're going to open in Photoshop. And this is what it looks like. So it gives you a few layers here. It gives you the solid white background you can turn on and off. It gives you some information layers, and it gives you a layer to place your design. Now, the first thing I like to do with this, because when you get rid of the info layer, it gets rid of some helpful stuff that you actually want. Expand that layer. Let me actually pop this out here so you can see it, since it was behind my head. So the guide layer, you just want to expand that. And I like to keep the green line for the safe area and the bleed lines and all that for now, but I like to hide the info. But before I do that, what I like to do is use these guides, and I place them over the left and right center lines, because those disappear once you get rid of the info. Now I can get rid of the info, and now I'm using these guides to know where the dead center and then the left and the right center of the mug is. All right, so I'm not gonna make my design in here. And the reason for that, probably the biggest suggestion or tip I could give you, is always make the largest file of your design based on any product that you might be offering that design on. I hope that sentence made sense. So what I usually do is I start with the t-shirt. Whatever the biggest thing is I'm going to be putting this design on, whatever the largest print file is, I make that one first, because you can always size a finished design down without losing quality, but you cannot size a file up without losing quality. The only time that's not true is if you work with vectors. And I sell most of my designs at least on t-shirt and mug, usually t-shirt, sweatshirt, hoodie, mug, sometimes some other stuff. So I always start with the t-shirt size design because that's the largest file size. I do 4,500 by 5,400 because it's usable across merch by Amazon, Etsy, Redbubble, pretty much any site you want to upload a t-shirt design to. Now here's where I start to deviate into two possible ways of making the actual mug design. Once I've made the design that I want to make for the t-shirt and that I'm going to also offer on a mug, I can go in one of two directions. If the design is more of a landscape aspect ratio, if it's wider than it is tall, then I use the template to size it correctly. If it is a square or a portrait aspect ratio, so if it's taller than it is wide, then I just trim my t-shirt file down to get rid of the blank, the large size of the t-shirt file, and I save it as a separate file, and I just add mug to the name, and I don't use the template. So I'll show you using the template first, then we'll do it the other way. So I've made this file, I've already saved it I've exported it as a PNG for the t-shirt, and this is just a template file I have in Photoshop. It's a PSD, and it's got, a white layer in the background and a black layer in the background, so I can quickly take a look at that. This one still has its separate layers, though. I haven't merged these layers, so I'm going to do that first. Again, let me pull the layers out here. I am going to merge the layers. And why do I do this instead of just taking the t-shirt file? Well, the most important thing when you're designing for mugs and centering is to know exactly where the center is of the design. And you could be slightly off when you save your t-shirt file and it's got blank space on the right and the left. You would have done your best to center it in the t-shirt design, but sometimes it could be off just a little bit, and it is noticeable when something is off a little bit on a mug. So when you merge the layers and then use this image trim and then just hit OK, it'll get rid of all of the extra size of that t-shirt file that we no longer need. And I'm not going to save this PSD to overwrite the template I had or anything. I just needed it to be trimmed down so that I will know exactly where the center of just the design is. All right, now I can just copy this layer. So I can just do my Command or Control C, come over to my mug template now, and I can paste it in. Of course, I'm going to have to make it quite a bit smaller. And now we'll start to bring it in. Now, here's what I was talking about. This is why I use the template for designs that look like they might be a little bit wider than they are tall. Because what we need is we need the design to be as close to being centered on each side of the mug as possible. The key is that the center of your design needs to be relatively close to where these guidelines are. And at the same time, you don't really want your design going outside of the safe area too much. It can go outside a little bit, and I do that all the time. But you don't want to have it pushed way to the maximum bleed line like this. And you'll see there's kind of a red border around it here. So what you don't want is you don't want it looking like this. Now this looks okay in terms of where the center is, but this is way too close to the maximum bleed line on the edge. We don't want that. What we want is for this tire here, the farthest left side, to be pretty much right on the safe line, but we want this centered. It's not working out that way. So what do? We're going to grab the right bounding box cube here. We're going to hold down the Shift key, and we're going to drag this in, and it's just going to squeeze the design and make it more narrow. And I'm going to do that until it gets to be where it's centered. If it doesn't look really weird, then you can let go and we're gonna try this, okay? If it did look really weird, then you might need to do a little bit more tinkering. You might need to make it vertically a little smaller as well. Most designs, I find that most designs, I can squish them like that a pretty good amount before they start looking really strange. And keep in mind that on a curved item like a mug, it's not going to be quite as noticeable that you squished it. And in this case, you know, the longer you look at this, the less weird it looks. But in this case, I'm happy with this. I think this looks good. I'm going to make sure it's vertically centered. There's kind of an assist pink line that shows up there in Photoshop. So vertically centered, we're good. And I'm happy with the way it's centered on the left side of the mug. So now what we have to do is copy this layer and do the same thing over here on the right. So we'll just grab this and do a duplicate layer. All right, now we'll grab that and move it over. And again, we'll make sure it's centered. We'll make sure that it matches up from a vertical standpoint. We'll make sure that it lines up as far as where we've got. There we go. So now it's showing me three pink lines. And so I think we're good to save this print file. Before you save it, just make sure you turn off all of the other layers. So turn off the background, turn off all of the assist layers. Looks like we turned everything off. So now we can do an export as a PNG. All right, so now we're back in Printify and we're gonna add the design. And when it uploads, it should default to the 100% scale because it is the exact size of this print area. And it should look pretty much exactly like it looked in Photoshop. So all we really need to do is hit preview and make sure that what we've got looks good from a left and right perspective. All right, so the left side looks okay. The right side, let's take a look. There's a little bit of something to be aware of here. So in this view, this looks like maybe it's a little bit too far to the left, but two things to keep in mind. One is that there's another view of the right side of the mug. It's a context one. It's this one. This one to me almost always looks like it places the design a little further to the right, and I find that it's a little bit more accurate to what you actually receive, at least in all the samples I've gotten. So I usually pay a little more attention to this particular mock-up when it comes to the right side of the mug. And the other thing to be aware of is, you know, with our design, what was the actual center in the design? The actual center in the design, if you look at where the center bounding box is, the center is not really the peak of the first avocado's head. It's kind of like where this one black line is on the avocado. And then if we come and look at this one looks much more like it matches up with what we saw in Photoshop as well as the edit view. See how this line is matching up to what we saw in Photoshop? Just something to consider. I personally, you know, once I'm satisfied that it comes out looking like this, I would go ahead and I'm comfortable with the way this looks. I would go ahead and proceed to make the rest of my listing. So the second way that I create my mug designs is I take a little bit of a shortcut if the design is more portrait orientation, more vertical, it's taller than it is wide. So here's an example of that. This is a dad themed design in honor of Father's Day. So this is living the dad life with a little silhouette of a dad pushing a couple babies in a baby carriage here. Now you could do this on the 11-ounce black mug or the 11-ounce white mug. It might stand out a little bit better on the black mug, but we'll just keep it to the white mug to keep it simple here. So for this design, this is much taller than it is wide. All I do is I still do the trim. So I'll go to image trim and just hit OK. And now I don't have any extra blank space. And now I'll just go to File, Export. I'll export this and I'll give it the same name. I'll just add mug. So it would be like dad life. And then I'd put an underscore and mug. And that's how I name my files. So I know if the type of product is not in the name, I know it's for a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. And then if it's for something else, I add the name. So I would already have a file that's just called dadlife.png. Now I've got one that's dadlife mug. Now the whole idea here is that I didn't need to resize that design. I didn't need to change the width because I'll be able to center it on both sides of the mug easily right in the editor view. And so all I do is I'll upload my mug print file. All right, and then I'm just going to size it. We'll make it a little bit bigger here. I'm just gonna size it so that it looks like it fits well. And you can pretty much max out, you know, the safe area with a design like this. You could even go slightly over the safe area line if you wanted to, but I'm just gonna cap it right at the safe area line to get the most width out of it as possible. And now I'm just gonna place this so that it lines up. I'm gonna go just a touch to the left or to the outside of the center line because I find that the center line is actually a little bit more like just a hair to the outside of it rather than right dead on it. So just look for that little circle for the bounding box. And I like to place mine just slightly to the outside. Once I've got that, all you do is use the copy feature right here in the editor. So it's this little copy is right next to the trash can on the right side of the designer view. So hit duplicate, gives you a second one that matches the exact size you just made. And then I just bring it over to the right side and I do the same thing. I place it just to the right of that center line. So just about the same, just right about there. And now we can hit preview. And so this is what the design looks like. Now this looks like I might need to shift the left side of the mug over even a little bit more. Let's look at the right side, and then we'll look at my favorite one, the context one. That doesn't look too bad. That looks pretty good. Actually, see, this one has it more over to the right again. So I'm probably just going to leave this because I think it looks pretty good on both sides after reviewing this one. And this is the one that, in my experience, tends to be the more accurate. All right, so that's that. That is how I size and place my designs if they are more of a portrait orientation. I don't even bother with the template. Now let's just talk about the 15-ounce mug size option that a couple print providers have. For example, if you use MyLocker as your print provider, they have the 11-ounce and 15-ounce size available within the same listing, so you can just publish one listing that's got both options. If you go with District Photo, they're separate in the catalog. You can still combine them in one listing by copying SKU numbers, but they are listed separately. So if you do want to do a 15-ounce size, I just wanted to show you that it's not necessarily anything different that you have to do. The template is different. It's a different size template. That looks like just about what the center should be. We'll hit preview, and it's going to look a little bit funny because the 15-ounce mug is more tall and narrow compared to the 11-ounce mug. Different aspect ratio to the mug itself. So here's a good example of a design where if you're going to sell this on the 15-ounce size, you probably need to save a separate print file. And what I would personally do is, again, I would just go to the template. There's a template for this one too. So I would open this up and I would use this template to then take this. I would just drag this right over or copy and paste. And I would do something similar where I would resize it. And then I would probably push it a little bit further to the left or to the outside, to the left or the right of the center line for your print area. And you might need to do that kind of like squishing it a little bit more until you've kind of maximized the height and the width for getting it centered in that print area. And then just save this as another file and add 15 to the name so you can tell the difference and upload it and you should be good to go. Now, if it was a design where you used the individual separate layers where you just had one print file, that is, again, even easier to adjust your 15-ounce size by shrinking it to the print area. Again, I like to place it a little outside of the lines. Do the copy again, match it up to the other side, and then look at your preview. So with 15-ounce mugs, the more portrait orientation your design is, the better it's going to look. Some print files work just fine on both sizes, and some I find you need to go in and adjust it using the 15-ounce template. So it's really just up to your judgment on what's going to look good. And that's it. That's my whole process of creating my mug print files. Always start with the largest size that you need. So if that's a t-shirt, then do that first and then size it down and adjust. I do want to show you one other thing that is helpful if you're using Gelato or Printful, because they both have this feature when you are in the design creation step for your listings with mugs. So once you click on Start Designing and you're in the designer view in Gelato, and the same thing's going to be true in Printful. It's going to look a little different, of course, but the main thing I want to show you is, so you've uploaded your print file and you make any adjustments you want to make here. Once you do that, you can click on 3D. So they have a regular preview, but both Printful and Gelato also have a 3D view, which I think is the best. I think it's the best way to be able to see where the center of your mug is. So what I like to do, it's kind of like the hand tool where you just grab it and move it all around. So what I like to do is I tip the mug either down or up. So like, let's tip it down and then just kind of find where the center is. Actually, no, let's tip it up. Where is the center of this side of the mug? Looks like maybe it's like there-ish. That's about as good as I can get it because it doesn't tip down any further. I think Printful's comes more like completely horizontal. And then just rotate up. Try not to rotate to the side, just rotate up to the point where Now you feel like you're looking at the side of the mug dead on. And this is what it will look like. This is, I think, the best way using the 3D view if you use Gelato or Printful to really tell whether you have centered your design on your mug. And yes, I did chop that tire off. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was helpful, let me know in the comments. If you have other ways of making your mug designs, as I said, also put that in the comments because I'd love to learn from all of you as well as far as what you do to create your mug designs. If you did find it helpful, do me a favor, hit that like button so that YouTube can get this video out to more people. And if you haven't subscribed to the POD Insights channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can get notified of future videos that I have coming out. Thanks, everybody.